Welcome to Risky Bitness. Please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. If you would like to support the channel, please use the links in the description to get some gaming gear. These are affiliate links and I will receive a small portion of any sales made via these links. If you would like to support the channel directly, please consider joining my Patreon, where you will be able to see all my videos up to a week before they're uploaded to YouTube. What was cooler in the 80s than ninjas? Oh yeah! Ninjas. What was cooler in the 80s than ninjas? Ninjas were everywhere. Movies, video games, cartoons, toys. We loved ninjas. These mythical Japanese warriors with their cool costumes, their exotic weapons, and mysterious ways were all the rage. And Tecmo wanted to get their hands on some of that sweet, sweet ninja money. You probably remember the Ninja Gaiden trilogy on the NES. This was one of the most popular franchises on the console, known for its addictive gameplay and punishing difficulty. However, did you know that Ninja Gaiden was also released in the arcade? If you love Ninja Gaiden, be sure to subscribe and enable notifications, as I will be covering the Master System and PC Engine versions in the near future. Stay tuned for that. The word Gaiden in Japanese means side story, which is a bit of an odd choice, given that this is not a side story at all. This is most likely due to the word simply sounding cool, rather than having any particular meaning. For this reason, it should be no surprise that the Japanese release was called Ninja Gaiden, which translates to Ninja Dragon Sword Legend. Now that is straight up 80s badass. I imagine this is because the name Ninja Gaiden probably would not make sense to a Japanese audience. Gamers would wonder what the main story is and where they can find it. If you live anywhere in Europe, you may know this game as Shadow Warriors. This is due to the influence of the BBC, who decided that during the 80s the word ninja had a violent connotation that was not appropriate for media that was being marketed to children. Contrary to popular belief, the word ninja was never banned or prohibited in the UK. It was simply censored by the British Broadcasting Company. Ninja Gaiden was developed by Tecmo, a games developer and publisher who has been in business since 1967. Tecmo was acquired by Koei in 2011. If you're interested in a more in-depth history of Tecmo, please let me know in the comments. Today you might see such games as Nioh or Nioh, however you pronounce that, and also the Samurai Warriors series coming from them. So they still make some games. I imagine, I don't know for sure, but I believe some of the Tecmo staff is still involved. I'd have to do a little bit more research about that, so let me know if that's something you'd be interested in knowing about. Now, while Tecmo published Ninja Gaiden in Japan, the publishing in North America was split between Atari and High-Tech Expressions, which was a small developer mostly known for licensed kids games and ports, like Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego for the Super Nintendo, and Street Fighter II for MS-DOS. In Europe, the publishing was handled by Ocean, who is one of the most prolific publishers of third-party games in Europe. Ninja Gaiden Arcade was developed in parallel with the NES version. These two games were developed by two different teams working independently of one another. The director of the Ninja Gaiden Arcade game is something of a ninja himself, a mysterious Tecmo employee known only as H. Iijima or Sturongo Shima is given the director credit here. He is also credited with directing Tecmo Knight, Ninja Gaiden 3, Rygar, and a few other lesser-known titles. I was unable to find much info about him online, so if you know anything about Mr. Iijima, please let me know in the comments and I'll be sure to give you a shout out in a future video. The game art is credited to one Shinobu Iwabayashi, who also worked on Tecmo World Cup Soccer and Tecmo World Wrestling, which is also a fantastic game. This is also a bit of an interesting name for a ninja game as well. Shinobu is a common name given in Japan which translates to perseverance. Now, there are multiple kanji with different meanings, but the most relevant one here is a kanji that shows yaiba, which is sword or blade, right above kokoro, which is heart, so it can be pronounced also as nin. This kanji can be interpreted as perseverance in the face of failure, defeat, or even death, and it's commonly used by martial arts schools who offer training in ninpo and claim lineage to historical ninja clans. This is the beginning of a very, very deep conversation that is outside the scope of this video, but if you're interested in learning more about the myths and reality of ninjas, let me know and I will make a special video on that topic. As I've said before, I've studied martial arts for a very long time. I know quite a lot about it, and that's something that I can definitely give a lot of information about. For now, the takeaway is that the art of a game about ninjas was done by a guy whose name is basically Ninja, and that's pretty cool! The arcade hardware features a Motorola MC68K processor with a Zilog Z80 coprocessor running at 4 MHz. The 68K processor was a very popular processor and can be found in most arcade boards through the 80s and 90s. You may notice that this is a similar configuration to the much more powerful Neo Geo hardware, but with slower clock speeds. I wasn't able to find too much information online about the arcade hardware for this machine, but if you know more, please tell me in the comments. I believe this is one of the first games released on the Tecmo 16-bit hardware. That board didn't really have a specific name, it was just called the Tecmo 16 or the Tecmo 16-bit hardware. The 68K is a 16/32-bit processor, meaning that while the ALU is 16-bit, it can process 32-bit instruction sets and has a 32-bit data bus. What that translates to is a lot faster data pathways, which basically explained why the game looks so good for its time period. You didn't see a lot of games that looked quite this pretty, but that's because they didn't have processors that were 32-bit processors. The audio is driven by two Yamaha YM2203 chips and an Oki MSM6295 AV PCM audio driver. The Yamaha chips are 8-channel frequency modulation synthesis chips, or FM chips. You'll notice in this game a lot of scrolling of the backgrounds, so you can see the power of that Zilog Z80 as a coprocessor allowing that to be done, just like the games in the Neo Geo that had the zooming and the scrolling capabilities. Something that was very high-tech for the time. The arcade is a different game entirely from its NES brother. It's a scrolling beat-em-up with two planes the player can move between while fighting enemies, an upper and a lower plane. The player character is an unnamed ninja, and a second player can join the battle at any time. Instead of wielding a sword, the ninja uses hand-to-hand combat to dispatch his foes. But don't worry, there is a power-up that allows you to use your sword for a short period of time. Power-ups can be obtained by knocking enemies into breakable objects, scattered throughout every stage. You can also throw your opponents by jumping over them and grabbing them by the head. It looks pretty cool, and is a lot of fun to pull off. If you don't touch the joystick while the screen is scrolling, your ninja will walk to the right slowly, just to keep the action moving, which is kind of a nifty feature. A button on top of the joystick can be used to grab onto overhead railings and climb, jump, or kick at enemies. Some sections of the game challenge the player to hang onto an overhead structure and jump over gaps. The game is a brutal quarter muncher, and there are several sections where the screen just absolutely fills up with a ridiculous number of enemies. You'll be fighting such enemies as Buff Jason Voorhees, Fat Macho Man, Karnov with a tree, Palette Swap Ninjas, and lots of this guy with the mask. Oh, and whatever this thing is. The colorful boss encounters in the game include a sumo, the Road Warriors, whatever the hell these guys are, Jewish sumos, the Road Warriors, and the Road Warriors. And then, eventually you fight Blade Adamus, or whatever he wants to call himself. Oh wait, I think that last one was Legion of Doom. The supernatural elements of the story are present, but don't play quite as big a role as they do in the NES trilogy. As the game goes on, the enemies get stronger and take more hits to defeat. The last stage is absolutely insane. I can't get through. maybe I'll have my wife tag in and we'll do it together. The story is much simpler. You're a ninja hired to stop a crime syndicate led by a descendant of Nostradamus from taking over the United States. You'll be whisked away through different parts of America after each boss is defeated. A humorous screen follows with the ninja doing something very silly or out of context. And watch out, because if you stop feeding this machine, your ninja will die a gruesome demon sawblade death. Insert coin! Insert coin! I first played this sometime in the 90s at an arcade, but I don't really remember where exactly. I think it was a place I'd only been to once. I was really surprised because I had no idea that an arcade version had ever been released. For years I thought the arcade must have come first since that's the way things usually went. I really liked the game and thought the climbing aspect was really cool. The soundtrack basically sounds like an 80s action movie. It's just super cheesy and it's kind of awesome, but in a really cheesy way. Like so bad it's good. It's fantastic. So while the player ninja is never identified, this was retconned in Yaiba Ninja Gaiden Zeta, in which it was decided that the player character was, in fact, Hayabusa, the protagonist of the NES game. This placed the arcade game in a canonical timeline, so it happened, it's part of history. Ninja Gaiden was ported to several home computers, including the Sinclair, the ZX Spectrum, and Commodore, Amiga, all that fun stuff. All the stuff we never saw here in the US, so probably Shadow Warriors on all those there. Pretty well received critically too. They mostly got very good reviews on those home ports. I didn't really find a lot of information about how the arcade game itself was received, but my understanding is that the NES version was far more popular, and they were released around the same time. Now, the Ninja Gaiden arcade game is very fun. A lot more fun with 2 players. As beat-em-ups go, it came out before the absolute revelation that was Final Fight. So it's not as fleshed out and developed as this kind of game would come to be in the 1990s. It's a lot of fun though, and it can be played today on the Wii Virtual Console or as a hidden bonus game in Ninja Gaiden Black. I would say I recommend it. It's a good rainy day afternoon killer. That's it for today. We did a real quick short one today. I didn't want to get too in-depth here. I wanted to, have a video that was short enough that people could watch it and enjoy it, and not have to come back to it later. So I hope you stuck with me. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, game over.